Move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
I think the point's quite relevant. And the situation is we're talking about a need to conform all of the salaries of judges in the territories who are subject to presidential reappointment every 10 years.
Would the gentleman yield for a second?
Yes, sir.
Salary is already the same.
Well, okay, salary.
We're talking about retirement benefits.
Fair point. So salaries have already been rendered the same, and there's a good question whether they should be, in my view. And so now we're talking about conforming retirement benefits. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the clarification. But the same questions arise. I just wonder, I hear that the notion is conform them to the Article III judges and to the, maybe not entirely, but to the Court of Claims judges, who are also subject to presidential reappointment, but they're not Article III judges. And I just look at what the thing that struck me here, as I sit here at almost 58 years old, is the notion that we're going to make them eligible for retirement benefits after reaching the age of 50. I encountered a thing like that in the state legislature on some retirement mechanisms. I think most Americans would look at us here and say, what in the world? In an environment where, generally speaking, except for the rapid increase in murder rates precipitated by abysmal defund police rhetoric and the like, and Soros DAs and so forth across the country, but as a general proposition, life expectancy has been increasing. And people talk about sometimes over time whether our Social Security system
would the gentleman yield for a second?
Yes, sir, I will.
I just point out that yes, they're eligible for pension at 50, but they have to serve a minimum number of years, and they can't control whether they're reappointed.
10 years, Mr. Chairman, 10 years. And then they can retire at 50. There are rumors that go around on the internet about what members of Congress get. Actually, some of the guys who've been here a long time, they do get a lot. Generally speaking, though, it's a very modest, that's beside the point, though. The real point is, I just think people would, the ordinary guy who's out there working for a living and is looking around this country where lots of people are being paid not to work, would look at those numbers and just say that's absurd. And also, it's not the only point that you can work. If you've served for 10 years as one of these territorial judges, you can now, under this bill, you can lower the retirement age so they can leave at 50. And I think I'm not sure exactly what the retirement benefit is, but I think it's really close to their salary. Whatever, maybe somebody can clear that up for me when they have an opportunity to speak. But you've also got the fact that this addresses the ability of judges to serve in senior status. They can voluntarily take senior status. That means they get a far diminished workload, as I understand it, and they still and they get, almost all of their compensation. And the rules on that are pretty lax. And then if you don't even meet the 15 years or the rule of 80, you can get a proportional part if you've served for 10 years. I just don't know what world we seem to live in Washington. That's crazy. Most Americans are working hard, and they're working until they're 70 or 75 years old. It's insane. And I say that as a member of the bar for 29 years. Well, longer than that now, I guess, practicing for 29 years. And I'm sure I say it and offend a number of members of the bench. I do know, it's true, that most people who sit on the Article III bench throughout the country could have their choice to work in a private law firm and make far more. I also got to tell you, I know what their lifestyles are like. And for the most part, it's a lot harder to practice law in a private firm and make that kind of money than it is to be an Article III judge. So I just think, and again, this is outside what the Constitution requires in terms of not reducing pay for lifetime tenure. I just don't get it. And so,
gentleman yield
I yield to the chairman.
The intent is to foster judicial independence.
Well,
that's the real intent.
I'll tell you, and maybe that's a hotly debated topic in the country too. Most Americans believe that the judiciary is highly politicized because of the predilections of the judges who are on the bench. And one way to fix that is to have the political branches appoint and confirm new judges. So it doesn't make sense to me that insulating judges further so that they can carry out political decisions and be beyond the reach of the people to correct over time is what should be the objective. And it almost passes without comment in this committee. I guess I'm an outlier. So be it.
Well done.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Texas seek recognition?
Just write the last word.
Gentlelady is recognized.
I can't say that I haven't enjoyed the discussion that my good friend has just offered. Just coming in, I thought we were on a controversial bill, Mr. Chairman, but obviously the idea of insulating and providing the balanced retirement for judges that over the years as a member of this committee, I remember Chairman Hyde, champion of trying to be fair to federal judges. I'm trying to recall in his debate whether he spoke about political judges. I think he was only looking to ethics, integrity, character, and the responsibility of the federal judiciary, the third branch of government. Now we hear that the solution to a retirement plan is for the body dominated by the other party to appoint more judges. I think the tragedy, with all of the respect that I have for the United States Supreme Court, is the enormity of politicization that has occurred at that level. I've never seen it in my life. I'm a Earl Warren Fellow, which I received in going to law school. Everyone is reminded that he was appointed by a Republican president and was a Republican. But under his court, the prestige of the court was at one of its highest levels. I might even say when Justice Rehnquist was there. And I certainly had much to not agree with Justice, but there was a certain decorum in the court. That is certainly, I believe, not the answer for our friends to get more appointments, because we can see what is occurring at this point as it relates to those. But this is not the debate of this bill about who's appointing and who's not. And so I hope that we can pass a simple bill that is a fix, that makes sense, and responds again to the respect that this committee, under your leadership, Chairman, continuing through John Conyers and all previous chairs, of the respect we have for the third branch of government, and to at least try to do something that has little danger, little opposition, and get it done, and get it done quickly. So I would ask my colleagues to support H.R. 282 and do the job that we are assigned to do as a Judiciary Committee of such esteem and immense jurisdiction. I say that with all affection of my colleagues. Why make this a moment of debate on who has politicized the bench? I'll take that on any day. That is not the appropriate time. What we need to be doing is working seriously to get good legislation passed. I ask my colleagues again to pass this legislation, and I guess I reject the analysis of who's politicizing and who needs to make appointments. I'll end by saying I hope Joe Biden will continue in the years to come to make the excellent appointments that he has made to date. And he'll continue those appointments in his reelection in 2024. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona seek recognition?
Move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
I thank the chairman, and I was intrigued because I didn't hear this debate get about the politicization of the federal bench until the gentlelady spoke. I mean, and so in my lifetime, as a guy who practiced law, tried cases, et cetera, I'll tell you that the first politicization that I was truly aware of was the Bork hearings. That was real politicization. And since then, it's been deteriorating ever since then. But I didn't hear politicization until the last speaker, which of this issue. This debate seemed to be focusing on benefits, et cetera, which is probably where it needs to be centered anyway. But having said that, I'm going to yield to the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Bishop.
I thank the gentleman from Arizona, and nor did I make it about politicization. What I spoke to was, and let me put a fine point on it, district court judges, and these judges who are not Article III judges, not appointed for life under the Constitution, judges in territories appointed every 10 years by the president, like the Court of Claims that considers claims against the United States government, those judges, both all appointed subject to repeated presidential appointment for 10-year terms or other terms. This is what we're talking about. But their salaries are conformed to district judges. They make $223,400 a year. Most Americans, Americans are listening, obviously there are a lot of people who make lots more than that, but there are many, many Americans who don't make that amount of compensation. And they're watching this, and so all I said was, you mean you're going to also say these guys get to work for 10 years and get to retire at 50? While they make 223? So, or more as it's gone up. So then the response from the chairman was that this is designed to protect the independence of the courts, of these judges. And then the gentlelady from Texas weighed in on that score. So now it's getting pretty interesting. The guardians of the independence of the judiciary are coming forward. The same people who want to pack the United States Supreme Court, who've prompted and cheered the crowds outside the justices' houses while they're trying to make a decision that you don't like, precipitating, if you take the guy yesterday in Homeland Security Subcommittee talking about stochastic terrorism, implying that this guy went out to try to assassinate Justice Kavanaugh, was inspired by that same rhetoric. You're our guardians of the independence of the judiciary. But the legitimate way to control the judiciary is what is the mechanism of presidential appointment, confirmation by the Senate over time. That is what you guys call packing the court, by the way, when you apply it to the Article III courts, the Supreme Court most of all. So all I'm talking about, well, just one second, let me finish the point. All I'm saying is this is just pure common sense economics and regulation of an employment system that is also serving a very important judicial function. But they're employees. To give them 10-year service, and then you can just retire at 50 and just say, well, the only explanation I'm going to give is because we do other judges that way. Maybe we shouldn't have gotten there for other judges. But I don't think you improve it by expanding it. Is there somebody I'm supposed to yield to? It's Andy's time. I don't have the time to yield, Mr. Chairman, but I'll yield back to Mr. Biggs.
Mr. Biggs, yield for a second.
I would.
Thank you. I just want to inject two facts into this. Number one, these judges are confirmed by the Senate. And number two, we're talking about a grand total of 4 judges.
So maybe it
I'll
doesn't
yield
matter.
to Mr. Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Biggs. So I see. So the argument is it doesn't matter. It's 4 judges. We got to pass a bill through the Judiciary Committee to make sure we take care of them so they can retire. Can we get down to the judge? Who's the judge who needs to retire at 50? I don't think you made your argument with that one, Mr. Chairman. With all
Mr.
respect,
Chairman,
I yield back to Mr. Biggs.
Mr. Biggs, can I just answer? I think unless
Yeah, I'll go ahead and yield to you.
I believe if this same retirement applies to federal judges, you can't retire at 50 unless you've served 30 years, because the rule is your age plus your years of service has to equal 80. So you can't retire at 50 unless you served for 30 years, which means you'd have to be appointed to the bench at 20, which I guess is
Okay,
possible.
I'm going to reclaim to give it to Mr. Bishop.
To give it to who? You. Thank you. The line in the memo I'm looking at says a territorial judge would be eligible for retirement benefits after reaching the age of 50 and serving a 10-year term if they are not reappointed to the bench.
And my time has now expired, and I have no more to yield to anyone, Mr. Chairman.